Temperature. Towards what would such selves draw and gasp, apparently, as though the curse of substance had been dreamt through and let go? Choke on flaking plaster, dwell on heirloom merits, claw feet, costume of a still workable identity that blows eggs, false as blood and feathers fly across the human space, no pressure felt, strewn about a needle-padded floor. Were they sensors or rudimentary organs redden in the wake of who's responsible for my tray? Inside, high pressure, a new low without, prickles at its stress points everywhere, clogged effluvia. So gas valves stud the universal heap. A million vents and throat corral work in outcry. Cludges they might be, yet all here perch with love as though one's cupped, vacuum-drawn circle blew its closure, straining to get pierced and now just might open voluntarily. Insect valves settle, functionally equivalent to portals into cold machines. Deliberating hiss, sectional prostheses to thought, shells multiplied in hapless thuds. And yet this thud of earth, this hollow thud breaking in each breast against the circle, chokes with its first order audible before the shovelful strikes the casket, slackening the ligament between dirt and body. Temperature has flatlined, says the readout. Then life's availing its breath labour, moving through gristled air's invasion and retreat, ascents to the final compact, capped by stone and by pine needles' gentle fall. Outside selves walk across Central Park or down Thames Path, towards any cocktail bar or cafe which might do. This is our field, this our rickety fold of shared time. And suffering dissolves in a mild, ironical smile behind winking lights that indicate a body's less than final state, stayed and prepared for removal. We shall remove, we shall remove more than anything accompany the senses, weaving through dusk, let them out of being confined in what's no longer measurable. Impromptu, the done thing. Nothing here fits, nor should it. Be, let them be, shadowed by the stone-cold certainties taking back their words, leaving the unnamed no more, as spider's lumps on the shadow's strand. A renewal guide tells you how to capture people walking in the street, but remain silent. It is enough to incline slightly, prize yourself away. Any swarf left sparkles. Stones do not speak, but the setting, its sharp dust, is speaking volumes. People look to their shadows, draw to a standstill. Only waste light distinguishes actions from their fit ends, fringes where their outward going toils back silent and unsettled. Philodium. Who would hear were hearing a pith voice sheathed by the act of hearing? What did he hold in reserve, with transmission shrouded as though hearing's echo? It is his inside, his singing hood, his solitary, his without feigned swoops about the ears. Who would hear the dirt he will within his hood grind, would hear the harp of bow dangles swept and struck, threading through what's trafficked as his inside genuine feeling. Or spoken in the marrow out of hymnody, him whose likenesses were ghosting from his hood. Each more real than real, his startling illusions flit. Likenesses not to be released even 2 years after dying due to TB and his harsh repeated beatings. His name effaced. Soaked mattresses, belongings dumped after work, not to be released in paperwork. 2. image not to be retained on file, name to be revoked. It has to be his blood sings aloft, spiralling on thermal high alert, fit falcon, killing with a look. My genuine likeness has the dirt. My likeness swoops and cracks and jabs at bones the mountain slope is littered with. Sky tumbled bones. But he bore no likeness, being stopped and searched, being naked as the day he had been registered, he had been born, naked as the pith beaten out to parchment where a death warrant would be drawn up in duplicate and stamped, word for word put to rights, carbon sheathed. Velodia, Velodia, I hear you, do I? 3. She said, I have your back. You know, I'm your blood, but I have your back. This dress has many pockets, an apron of small instruments honouring your loved ones. I can see your dress's dirndl, and it flaps along the untrodden path towards the axis, as if a path could be untrodden. Ocarina, finger cymbals, Jew's harp, these stick out of the back they had been lodged in. All the books sag. My back has been pecked by birds. My eyes were saturated. There could be no travel, no divergence, no temperature gradient, no measurable scale, no skin homeostatic. Velodia, you will have died another death if 2 by 2 swap words, swap looks, swap touches. High-pitched hash leaks from a leather hood. Some vestige I seize, claim for my interior voice, this skin of sound, this mantle I wear and hear and duplicate, turned out in my effrontery. Got to get my water. Sorry. I have been asked who is Velodia, and Velodia's name, and I've got this the wrong way around. Okay, but anyway, it's I've got the wrong page here. Okay. Anyway, he was somebody who lived in the House of Government under Stalin, and he was a boy of about 16 who was arrested owing to the perceived sins of his parents, political sins of his parents, and was imprisoned for a long period, and his parents didn't discover that he had died under torture and owing to TB until some years after he had died. Nameless. What detains breeze amongst Carolean birches, hangs unpicked in packets, fingered apart into its gusts, hangs much as leaves whose smudge and blur arrest disturbance. As are too many names to pass by word of mouth, and trees' collective sigh catches no ear, for it is uninterrupted, and where a distant camera keeps a fixed view, affectless. In catechizing solitude, one leaf skitters. That's the one, nameless. Metaphors have been nailed down, sun has to glare. Gash in one white bough exposed to careless light. No resin bleeds from nakedness, from obduracy, nor does bark discard. About the stricken lake, instruments await what once might have been tracked. Birds no more called on to migrate. Memory foam holds a disregarded shape. Names stay unspoken. Could the local agent spare a moment's thought, who apathetically reviews and records, his attention sighs scrolling down, unspooling sky to stretch like blue plastic sheeting, wrinkle-free. Air's musculature tightens at his temples, but the impulse its correct way goes from sender to receiver, no noise, no message. The mummified corpses managed quite well in the water, floating, not sinking, not yet tagged. Al-Nur. They all look forward, but their eyes still dilated, bump against the wall. Results were delayed. Had my second scan, had my checkup? Have you scheduled your next attempt? This roundelay they sung when beating bounds, when they dressed urine-soaked hide. I had my chances. I saw you round the corner, ivy undergrowth and marram seed scum condensing on the pond's white eye. The overpass above a concrete runnel feeding back into the turbine, birds and fish. What an end, whose struggle upstream to find an outlet blocked. Oil-choked sump, swallowed fold, turbine blades, apertures. Here are further scraps, some more of what was destroyed. These come to me, and what can I say? Musad Ibrahim, Ali El Madani, Khaled Mustafa, Syed Milne, Hussein Al-Umari, Haji Daoud Nabi, Kamel Darwish, Al-Dil Fattah Qasem. Names drawn up in ranks, insecure as nates of their necks bent in homage, eyes struggling out in transport on the main floor, eyes fixed on the spot where silence is enjoined. The angel stoops to destroy. The second names might be recorded, pressed where mesh strains a crumbling sluice. Pressed in syllables. Fight blowback, heartless refoulement, syllable by syllable. Impromptu, Lakefront Trail, March. Close against the lake's wall, an icy snake articulates its scales. High dense tinkle wraps the higher hiss of the ice-freckled air. Iman Lila froze to death in a half-finished concrete shell. Make that internal. Iman Lila froze to death. Repeated in the undertow, this belittles syllables that strip the infant of her lullaby, her lal. Drown in the rip current, riffling through the scales beside a concrete balustrade that girds a high-rising lake. I look you out again, look at you, perched in your father's elbow crook. Look you out where I sit wrapped by windows and the deep clanks of heating. Iman Lila froze to death. Will you take this name in? Iman Lila, who froze to death. So, a few weeks before she recently died, I exchanged some new work with my colleague Lauren Ballant, and I was just looking through emails I'd received from her, and I realised that the last email I received was a discussion of a draft of this poem. And I realised that this was uncannily a poem for Lauren, and it's an unpublished poem, but the most recent I've written, so I'm going to read it now. It's called Keeping Watch. A veil of lucidity spreads before its scene, displays of hardship a descendant might undergo, as orphaned futurity strains for eyes. Senses are attracted forward to then wipe them out, intervening in the breath falter, stripped down to null pause between strokes. Knocking on each side where light's pall dismisses moving shades. A baby's eyes that lucid on the threshold turn away this way. Salvage those detained within their orbit. An orb of masonry gives onto the square its blank look. A review stand's platform is holding up unscathed by silence's appeal. Ravenous its pause scoffs through crowds up to this plastic seat. Visuals are excellent, attendance being all one ever hoped for. But then the frames have been stabilised, designed to not adjust, fleshed out as torsos, rendered as tangible. Face it, it falls on detainees in creature comfort, waiting out. Now you go beyond words. Don't vanish, but incessantly delay, for a touch that lost what it had come for. Answering the call to hold back at a threshold, yet hold forth. Stretching to where light on this side overpowers a hand. Light full hardens, glossing over those who linger, shielded from a touch willed through abstraction. Too needy to adopt, too entire to disavow. Sustaining this world as albedo falling pauses entry, blindfolds. Bullseye window clears before a prospect. Time made palpable holds in holding off, distant, close to hand. Fends and it wrenches back on love's command within its shelter. Both breath that falters, breath enjoining. Storm won't overwhelm, sky won't fall in, idea stays its forked course, the subsequent self fights for its own seat, won't settle for performance at a distance. Tense into the open, an infant totters, drags her short shadow. Thank you.